cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Customer, clientele. I was broke, that was last year. Getting money like a cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Benjamin, nothing less. I was broke, that was last year. Don't change 'em. I never switched up. Been down since day one. Stay social. People change them. I never switched up. Social.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Dope Black Thoughts Live. Wow. It's your boy Kevin Cox here. Come at you with another one. So there's always something going on in the news. And you know, it's crazy because I think I'm actually behind the curve. I've been working a lot this week and I didn't hear about Deshaun Watson. So we're going to learn about it together. There's lots of stuff going on around that whole controversy. And I put that up on the link. Put that up on the advertisement. And hope everybody, I mean, if anybody wants to jump in and give me any info about the whole Deshaun Watson controversy, feel free to jump in on the comments whenever you tune in, and help, send anything you want, send links, send info, because I'm new to it. So today we want to talk about the debate for Colorado's Attorney General. The current sitting Colorado Attorney General is Phil Weiser, friend of the show. Been on the show a couple of times. I supported. I actually, believe it or not, I as many times as he's been on our show, I literally campaigned for his primary opponent in Joe Salazar. Joe Salazar is a very far left progressive. He's of indigenous and Mexican ancestry, and I was supporting him over Phil Weiser. But you know what? Phil Weiser won. And I threw my support behind him because even though he wasn't as far left as Joe Salazar, he was much better than the Republican alternative. So I was glad to actually support him. And family took pictures with him. He embraced me and my ilk with open arms. And I thank him for it. And we invited him onto the show, and he came on. He's come on, I think, 2 or 3 times. So I have nothing but love for Phil Weiser, who is the sitting Attorney General for the state of Colorado. But at the same time, look, it's time for a re-election. You know what I'm saying? There's always more elections coming up, and people don't just stay in power. They are supported by members of the community. They get elected by an actual real election system that includes voting, and includes a primary process, and includes a general election process, and attorney generals are not subject to the Electoral College. So it's very direct. You get more votes as the Democrat versus the Republican, you win. You get more votes as the Republican versus the Democrat, the Republican wins. So, I'm in support of Phil Weiser, but at the same time, I want to hear out his competition. But if you have followed any of my content for man, I've been around here for a little minute, for more than a year or two. If you've been following us since 2020, late 2020, this show started at the beginning of 2020. If you've been following us since the end of 2020, you will have heard about my personal run-in with John Kellner, which it's old news. It's water under the bridge. We're all adults. We've all moved on with our lives. But at the same time, I have personal history with John Kellner that was formative for me. So I can't wait to have him on the show to ask him good, fair, but hard questions about his record, about his intentions as the Attorney General of the state of Colorado, about his record in prosecuting as a line prosecutor for the 18th Judicial District in Colorado, which encompasses Aurora, mostly, because part of Aurora is Adams County, Aurora, Colorado, guys, not Aurora, Illinois. But I have questions I want to ask him, and the most recent update is that regarding the debate, our co-host Cleveland King actually attended their debate. it was at the Opportunity Center in Aurora on Dayton Street and 16th Street. That is Senator Rhonda Fields' building where she operates and runs many programs out of. And she held the debate between those two candidates there, which I know it's a small facility. I'm sure it was a packed house. I didn't get to attend because I'm now in LA. But at the same time, like, I kind of wish I was there because it would bring back memories, but two, this is super important. As a Black man that gets involved with politics, I'm no longer an elected official or a political figure, but at the same time, I do get involved. I'm kind of a political junkie, as it were. So I do care about these things. And, I highly recommend that if you're in the Black community, if you care about things such as, like the term Black Lives Matter, like the term defund the police, like the term, back the blue. If you care about, these are triggering statements for you, back the blue or blue lives matter or all lives matter. Like if that conversation means anything to you more than just, they're getting into politics again, they're just going to argue. If there's any more depth to it than that, you should pay attention to district attorney races. A district attorney sets prosecuting, I don't want to say prosecuting guidelines. The district attorney sets the standard for prosecutorial discretion that goes down. Did I say district attorney? I think I said it incorrectly. I apologize. The attorney general of the state sets the guidelines for prosecutorial discretion that comes down to district attorneys. And those people, they do the prosecution for every crime in the state. It's doled out to judges, and it's delegated to juries. But at the same time, there are sentencing guidelines. There's all kinds of discretion, and discretion is the key word, because at your discretion, you could say, I'm not going to prosecute when something happens, such as Elijah McClain gets grabbed up while committing no crimes and ends up dead. You could decide, you know what, I don't want to prosecute. Those cops didn't do no wrong. Good old boys, they didn't do nothing, right? Or you could say, you know what, I want to open an investigation into this department. I'm wondering why they weren't reprimanded to the fullest extent. Why there were no charges filed in that district, in that judicial district. And believe it or not, the judicial district that Elijah McClain was murdered by the police in is not the judicial district that I resided in. So whenever I'm having issues during the campaign, whenever I was having issues in that campaign with John Kellner's campaign, it wasn't because he was going to change any outcome with Elijah McClain's murder. It was only because we know his type, right? And the reason why I gave so much heat to Democrats, which, if you remember my last episode that I did one deep, I talked about why I don't get super excited about Democrats either, was because the district attorney where Elijah McClain was murdered is a Democrat, and there were no charges filed against those officers at that time. So, and you know what, I haven't updated myself. It's hard to stay logged in multiple states at the same time. And I'd love to see some members of the team hop on before the end of the show and give me some sort of an update as to what exactly is going on with that case and what sort of stuff I need to hear about with this when it comes to this campaign for John Kellner or Phil Weiser. But I think the issue of race is going to be rearing its ugly head in this campaign, in this election cycle. We're dealing with a post-Trump election cycle. We're dealing with a post-fact America. So a lot of stuff has been swept under the rug that needs to still be staying in the forefront, like the issue that I plan on talking to John Kellner about. But check it out. So Cleveland King attended the debate. Let me get back on my stuff. Let me not lose track. So Cleveland attended that debate, and he wore his nifty DBT shirt, and he asked questions, and he engaged, and he spoke to John Kellner, and he invited him to come onto the show. And John Kellner, possibly the future Attorney General of the state of Colorado, and the current sitting district attorney of the 18th Judicial District in Colorado, which encompasses Aurora, Colorado. He said that he would gladly come on our show. And Phil came on over and said, I'd love to come on the show too. So I want to talk to Cleveland. First of all, thank you, Cleveland. Thank you so much for putting in that work and helping bring us heavy hitting content. But also, I want to say thanks to both of those candidates, no matter our political ideologies, because Phil is more conservative than me, and John Kellner is of a completely different political ideology than myself. But as he will tell you, I'm sure he will tell you, because I've seen his campaign materials and I've seen him debate before. He's going to tell you that he's done lots of work in the Black community. He's done work to solve cold cases in the Black community that were left untouched by the Aurora Police Department, and he picked them back up, and he got justice for Black people and whatnot. Which I have questions and commentary about those said facts. But also, what work has he done as he's been a sitting district attorney, and why is he so quick to move on to attorney general, and what motives may be driving him to push so quickly from where he's at to a much higher office? Is it just political aspirations, or is it truly just a down home, deeply rooted desire for justice? So many D's when I was talking, kind of a tongue twister. But really, are you truly motivated for justice? Are you truly anti-racist? And we can discuss some of those topics. And first things first, thanks for not ignoring Black media. Hopefully, you give Brother Jeff a shot too. Shout out to Brother Jeff, not competition, just another colleague in Black media coming out of Aurora, Colorado. Shout out to Brother Jeff again. Doing a lot of work in Denver, which is a neighboring city to Aurora. But hopefully he gives Brother Jeff an interview as well. I would consider that anything less than that, kind of a snub. They need to make their rounds. They need to be seen. They need to be making sure that they're coming to us, to our community, and hearing us out, answering our questions. So, all that being said, I'm going to kind of leave it at that. We're almost at the halfway at 6:30, so I don't have to go too hard on that. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm seeing that it's showing that I might have a slow signal. So if it's chopping up, I do apologize. But look, guys, in our community, we have celebrities, and we have our elders that we honor. I don't necessarily honor people because of celebrity, but I do honor my elders. And I love it when people, especially Black people, have succeeded and gone far in life, and have been humble, and have been good role models and whatnot. And even if they weren't necessarily the best role models, at least have had a far journey, have done a lot before they transitioned on and left us with their legacy. So I want to help remember some titans in the Black community who have passed on. And first one I want to mention is let's just go with Bill Russell, because Bill Russell is a big name in the NBA from back in the days, And look, I'm gonna use a cheat sheet. I'm gonna use CNN, but because look, quite frankly, I never really watched that many sports. I watched the Rockets, but look, this is Bill Russell right here. Bill Russell has fingers just drowning in them rings, boy, because he was out there. He had, back in the days, he had that hook shot. You know what I mean? This guy, he was 6. Now I've seen conflicting information. Somewhere it said it was 6'10", somewhere it said he was 6'9". I'll leave the debate up, because look, I'm 6'7", and just depending on who's measuring me, I might be 6'8", I might be 6'6". It doesn't matter. But this guy was a big guy, not big weight wise, but very tall, very long, and was known for blocking shots. Just want to get into a little bit of info. Now he passed away. He was born in 1934, passed away in 22. So that's like 90 minus 2 years. She's like 88 years old, approximately, born out of Louisiana. Me being from eastern, southeastern Texas, kind of close to home. But Bill Russell, 6'9" center, known for his defense and ability to block shots, won 11 NBA championships in his 13 years with the Boston Celtics. Now that's a dynasty. That's basically the reason why people wear Celtics jerseys today. Not because of anything the Celtics have done too recently, right? Not to bash it all, shout out to all your Celtics fans, but kind of come on. Back in those days, they were a powerhouse. And, quite frankly, I stopped watching basketball after Olajuwon retired. Not trying to be like that, but still, I was H-Town born and bred. So I really started watching when we won our championship. And then, I was a big fan when we did our repeat. We went for the three-peat, didn't quite get it. But still, I remember those days. It was a different time. It was a different era. Basketball was different back then. People weren't traveling as much. Hate to, sound brash about it like that. But facts are facts. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on nowadays in basketball. A lot of flopping, dude. I remember the flop was so horrible. I ain't gonna say it's the same as it was back, as it was back when I stopped watching basketball, but it was kind of crazy. 12-time NBA All-Star from 1958 to 1969. First things first, find me an NBA player today that has a 12-year career. It's probably a handful. I don't want to quote, don't quote me on exactly how many it is, but it's not very many. Served as a commentator in televised basketball games in between his coaching jobs, yes. Founder and emeritus board member of Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, younger brother of playwright Charlie L. Russell. Now, mentorship is something that I'm big on. Having been on the school board before that, I was very much so impacted. My family my immediate family was impacted a lot by Big Brother, Big Sister, the Boy Scouts, a lot of mentoring and just helping the community is something that's super important to me. So that kind of rings a bell for me. In February 2009, NBA Commissioner David Stern announced that the Finals MVP trophy will be renamed the Bill Russell NBA Finals Most Valuable Player Award. That says something, right? Now, that was 2009. I believe Barack Obama was in office at that time. Man, what a day, for Black people at that time, having the first Black president, and that the NBA commissioner named the MVP trophy after Bill Russell. That's something else. And then he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So once again, that's another Obama move. And I can criticize Obama on a few policies, but you know what? I got to take my hat off to something like that. And I don't want to just go in on Bill Russell all day long, but I just remember those old moves back in the day, them hook shots, that old bounce pass, fundamentals. You don't got to be from Europe to do fundamentals. They were big on that back in those days. So, there's a whole lot of stuff that people could talk about. And look, in 2018, he was taken to the hospital from his home because of dehydration, released the next day. Inducted into the Hall of Fame as a coach in 2021. His winning record as an NBA head coach stands at 341 to 290 in the regular season and 34 to 27 in the playoffs, which is phenomenal. Passed away peacefully at the age of 88, according to a family statement, July 31st. So RIP. And, I want to, send blessings to his family and well wishes and whatnot, because we have to honor our elders and want to honor icons that have gone far in our community. Now I want to move on to another pioneer, if you will. That's going to be Nechelle Nichols. Now, Nechelle Nichols was the Black woman on Star Trek. And look, if you're a red-blooded American and you happen to be Black, probably was a crush. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just be honest. Let me not start all the way down there. Here's 8 fast facts about Nechelle Nichols. And I don't know if my signal is breaking up right now. If it is, let me know. Drop in the comments. Let me know if you're having any issues with connectivity. 8 fast facts about Nechelle Nichols. And this is actually, believe it or not, this is from my home, my home city of Houston's Chronicle website, chron.com. And that's what Nechelle Nichols looked like back in the days. And that's what I'm saying. If you're a red-blooded Black American back in those days, she was probably a crush. Nechelle Nichols was beautiful, was gorgeous. She rocked a whole lot of really cool hairstyles. She rocked the big hoop earrings, and I think even Captain Kirk was smitten. Check that out. But look, and not to besmirch her memory, but then I'm looking through this website. I'm looking through chron.com, and that's Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek. in the 60s, but before Star Trek, she had a years-long affair with Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. This guy, which, you know, he looked kind of like Captain Kirk, I guess, you know. Probably picked God, what's his name? My goodness. What's his name? Drop it in the comments, guys. I can't remember his name right now. But picked him because he looked kind of like himself. And turns out that she actually had an affair with him. So I didn't want to believe it. So I pulled up a second source because I want good information. I don't want to just put out there a bunch of conjecture and hearsay. So let me pull up a second source, because this isn't something I take lightly. Then Nechelle Nichols. Boom. Share. At the time, Roddenberry wanted to remain, and this is on the Wikipedia, which is heavily sourced, and we can just go straight to it. How about that? I'll just stay here. At the time, Roddenberry wanted to remain in an open relationship with both women, but Nichols, recognizing Barrett's devotion to him, ended the affair. She did not want to become the other woman to the other woman, which is like, wow, scandalous. But, you know, keep in mind, this is back in the 60s and whatnot. And obviously, everybody lives a life. People are complex. People have all sorts of entanglements. I think we all know what that's referring to. But, you know, they're complex people. And she was a pioneer all the same. You know, bringing that first black woman on you know, to kiss a white man on TV. I don't know if that's necessarily a huge, you know, massive win or something, but she's just pioneering. And so I want to say hats off to Nechelle Nichols and honor her memory, because she's definitely a memory from my childhood. So I definitely want to recognize her in passing, and send blessings and just good vibes in general to family and friends of Nechelle Nichols. I never actually knew her name until actually all of this, because I never really paid that much attention. But as soon as they say Uhura, I'm like, oh, Uhura. So most definitely. What else we want to talk about, guys? Deshaun Watson. What's going on with Deshaun Watson, y'all? I don't even know. But look, see, now I always start off with a grain of salt, and I be telling y'all, I try to tell y'all, I believe women. I do believe women. But I have an issue when it's like, you know, over a long period of time, all these people come out all at once, and then next thing you know, there's this massive lawsuit, and all these people are settling out of court. They're, you know, like, is it a cash grab? Is this a character assassination, or is it a trap? And so I want to pull this up. And what website is this? Let me hit it. Oh, this is the Times. Let me hit share. This is New York Times. I'm talking about Deshaun Watson. Look, even as I don't think you guys can see my mouse. Down here, there's a little piece of transcript. Like I said, my apologies. I'm always I'm that type, blah, 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 genuine and lovely person type of way. My apologies. You know, like, whew, that's what you're talking about when you're in trouble, when you're in the hot seat. Now, this New York Times, I want to give credit to Jenny Vrentas. This was published on the 7th of last month and updated on the 1st. So I'm not sure exactly what all was updated, what's the new stuff, but received a 6-game suspension. That's the most recent update, which is worth millions upon millions of dollars. So the accusations have been frequent and startling. More than 24 women have said that the football star Deshaun Watson harassed or assaulted them during massage appointments that Watson and his lawyers insisted were innocuous. Now, I ain't going for that, right? I ain't going for that. 2 grand juries in Texas this year declined to charge him criminally, and while the NFL considers whether to discipline him, he has gotten another job, signing a 5-year, $230 million guaranteed contract to play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this coming season. The Times Review also showed that Watson's conduct was enabled hold on a second, am I missing something? Yet a New York Times examination of records, including depositions and evidence for the civil lawsuit, as well as interviews of some of the women, showed that Watson engaged in more questionable behavior than previously known. The Times review also showed that Watson's conduct was enabled, knowingly or not, by the team he played for at the time, the Houston Texans. Come on, H-Town. Come on, H-Town. Don't be out there like that. Can't be out there like that. And, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but they be getting us out there like that sometimes. Sometimes, that's why I say sometimes it feels like a trap. You know, they get us surrounded. They put us out there with a bunch of people that can skirt the law. And then we start believing we can do what they do. No, it's a two-tier justice system. It's a two-tier justice system in the court of public opinion. So remember that. Michael Vick, you know, not a fan of abusing any animals, but I'm sure there are white people that were doing the same, right? Watson, knowingly or not, the Houston Texans provided the venue Watson used for some of the appointments. Provided the venue even. A team representative also furnished him with a non-disclosure agreement after a woman who is now suing him threatened online to expose his behavior. Sheesh. Rusty Hardin, Watson's lawyer, said his client continues to vehemently deny the allegations. He declined to respond in details. We can say that the real facts are known. When the real facts are known, this issue will appear in a different light, and that's the way it actually always works. That's why, and look, not to get dark, but that's why sexual assault is the most difficult crime to prosecute. That's why it's so hard on people who have been sexually assaulted or have accusations, who were afraid or hesitant to report. This is the catch-22. And this is why we have Dope Black Thoughts to talk about these harder subjects, because as a Black man, we get, lynched sometimes in the court of public opinion. They'll run our name through the dirt for doing something completely innocuous, and will target us and try to set us up and try to get us out of there because they see that $230 million contract coming. I'm not one to advocate that Bill Cosby was an angel or whatever in his private life, but I know in his day, Quaaludes were flying left and right all over the place, and everybody was slipping everything into each other's drinks, and it was the recreational drug of choice. So when they say Bill Cosby slipped me a Mickey, I don't know. I wasn't there. I would have filed a police report immediately after if I was slipped a Mickey and taken advantage of. I can't speak to the victimization or the intimidation or the pressures, and if they would override my ability to do so. But also, I'm not the victim of that. So I have to hit you with a good heart. I don't know. But here's something I do know about. Let's talk about Emmett Till, right? Emmett Till, he had an allegation made against him. He said he stepped on the lady's foot. She said he tried to rape her, right? Things of that nature. Or I'm sorry, am I mixing up the Black Wall Street and Emmett Till? Don't let me get my facts mixed up. I think I'm mixing it up. I believe Emmett Till whistled. I think it was a whistle, and you saw what that got him, right? When they got him out of there, I'm sure they were saying he raped her, he befouled her, and we can't let that stand. We got to show them what for, blah blah blah. But I'm sure they were claiming some horrible thing happened, and that they can't just let it slide, right? They didn't say he's just Black and we want to get him out of here, and they're not going to say that with things like this. I have no idea what the facts are. Because I wasn't there. I have not collected this information, and I've seen hit jobs where people were able to compile a bunch of not comments. What do you call them? Affidavits, sworn statements, saying this, that, and the other. I think back to this election, a bunch of crazy white people swearing on affidavits under threat of perjury that the election was completely stolen, and they saw people shoveling ballots, shoveling ballots and dropping down from the ceiling on cables and whatnot. I also lived in Aurora, and my neighboring city was Denver, and I saw a slew of allegations against Tay Anderson, and I saw a dearth of evidence. I never saw a shred, never saw police reports, never saw never saw sworn testimonies, saw a single representative of quote unquote 60 plus victims. How does that work? How does that work? Do you get a gang of victims and they elect a speaker? I don't know how that works. Things such as this, and it starts to look like a hit job. It starts to look like, hey man, I'm targeting this person. Maybe they're doing too good at their job. Maybe they're representing values that don't align with me, or what have you. Maybe it's just their black skin and their prominence and their success. Could be something as simple as that. So I don't know is my final answer. I don't know. And I don't go along with just what's been printed and just go with it, because I'm not a follower. I have my own mind, and I would love to see some hard-hitting confirmed evidence, or, from multiple sources. As I exhibited earlier, I did not want to just believe that Uhura, childhood crush, was over here linking up with Gene Roddenberry. So it's just I don't know, and it's controversial to me only because he's okay. And then here's my joke. I don't even want to make. I'm not trying to make light of sexual assault, not at all. But I mean, okay, so nothing's been proven, nothing's been given a ton of evidence, and he just signed a $230 million contract with the Browns. He's going to be playing with the Browns. He suffered enough, guys. That's punishment. No, but seriously, I had to get that out. But seriously, let's provide evidence. Let's bring some receipts. And if it's true, let's tear up that contract. Let's get him out here. Let's get him behind bars. If it's false, let's start putting some false accusation charges out there and start making some civil suits, Deshaun. Let's do what we got to do, because justice needs to be served. And I'm not a fan of sexual assault either way. So I just leave it at that, because I wasn't there. I didn't see nothing. I don't know nothing. I don't know enough about it. But so many times, all you got to do is just wave an allegation in front of somebody, and then they're just like, "Hey, look, we can get 20 statements. Let's get 20 statements." Now, do I believe that this man may have been a purveyor of this, or a customer, a reliable customer of this massage institution? Yes, I do not think completely negatively of sex work, even though it is kept in the shadows. And the fact that it's kept in the shadows is probably a large issue, right? It allows things such as this, where we can't tell because these things are being held in the shadows, and there's no real eye for what would you call it? Oversight. There's no oversight. That makes an issue. That makes it very dangerous to say we have knowledge about what's going on. So whenever they're just lobbing tons of allegations at a single black man that I haven't heard of messing up out there in the community before, I just give it a grain of salt. That's just where I stand. And so I'm paying attention, and I'm noticing I think I may have my partner showing up here, and I want to give him my opportunity to kind of give his 2 cents, man, because I ain't gonna lie, man, my throat's getting kind of parched over here running my mouth. Talk to me,
hey,
brother.
Hey, Brother Cox, how you doing? Man, you know what? My dog, let me vent for a second. So yesterday I had to throw away some bad chocolate, and I secured the trash can a certain way. I have a very intelligent boxer that figured out how to, while I was at work, dump the trash can, eat all the chocolate. So I had to run out, get some pumpkin, and get some medicine so that it could pass through the system. So I'm sorry for being late. So
what's the dog's name? Trouble?
Oh man, Marley been getting in trouble since I love him, boxer, but that's Marley. So I literally hopped on. I don't know which subject we're on, but definitely would love to chime in on where we're at, my good brother.
Bro, I was over here ruminating on Deshaun Watson and giving it the big IDK. I don't know, because I think about how Tay Anderson. I think about how many things can be piled onto someone before a single shred of evidence is popped up. I don't know the quality of the evidence, because I look at, say, things such as our election accusers who say the election was stolen, thousands upon thousands of sworn affidavits. What's the quality of evidence? And I heard in the judicial system that you could if you wanted to, indict a ham sandwich. But 2 grand juries couldn't come down with an indictment. And that doesn't speak to his innocence. That speaks to the fact that and also further concretes the fact that sexual assault is one of the hardest crimes to prove. It's one of the hardest to prosecute. But to me, it's like, I gotta stay out of it. It's controversial, and I still don't know. I don't just take the charges on their face. So that's kind of where I stood with it.
The Deshaun Watson case is interesting. First of all, to anyone who has experienced sexual assault, who didn't receive justice, or just didn't pursue it because they knew how difficult it was, I just want to send a shout out to you, because it's a difficult case. But you named something very interesting. 2 grand juries didn't indict. And if anybody know how grand juries are set up, the evidence that they have, the evidence that they have access to. And then you had a federal judge who was the person reviewing the case for the NFL, a federal judge, a woman federal judge.
Okay.
Looked at the case and said, hey, based on the standards of the NFL and based on the evidence I'm reviewing, I see 6 games. The NFL just 6 games, 6-game suspension.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions. One, I would love to see the transcript of the grand jury. I don't know if it's public, but would love to see if it's public and see what are we missing. And it may be something else. Do we need to change our laws and figure out, is there something missing when we look at sexual assault cases? Or is this a case where Deshaun Watson, who said he is innocent, that may have engaged in behavior that wasn't the best, but didn't live up to what would be considered a crime? And is it more of a civil case than it is a criminal case? And it seems like that's where we're at. But I don't ever want to minimize sexual assault. I'm just going by what the case is saying and what we're at. Once again, anybody who's experienced sexual assault know the difficulty it is to have it prosecuted. And what you're putting yourself out there, your job, your reputation, people going through backgrounds, trying to make you look like the victim. So, sexual assault is tough. And stitching onto this, as I begin to close on these remarks, we also know that there's been Black men that's been falsely accused.
Right.
And in that falsely accused, their reputation and their lives have been ruined.
And I want to, I was bringing back the terminology about the modern day lynchings. Sometimes, and let's go back to the not minimizing sexual assault. I know more than a handful of men, Black men, who have been sexually assaulted, horribly so, and refused to report, and just said, I just moved on. And they talk about the trauma that it gave them, in complete confidence, and talk about the trauma that it gave them, and not all of them are Black either, but affected them to this very day. People my age and older, in their 40s and 50s, that still will, if they have a moment of confidence with you, will still break down and mention something about it. So this is a issue that you brought up a really good point when you said we probably need to look at how we even address it in the criminal justice system. If a certain threshold is passed, maybe we still allow a certain amount of investigation or something like that. Maybe require, look, you're going to have to take a polygraph, and polygraphs aren't the most reliable. And of course they can be beaten, but just saying the process, just knowing someone's going to hook up to your heart rate, and we're going to look and see, what it is are you really confident when you're giving me these answers? Do you start sweating when we start asking you a few questions? Of course, it doesn't prove it in a criminal case, but just know we're going to take it seriously, and it's going to go beyond just, he says he didn't do it. She says yes. He says no, because we'll never find out. you know, but also let me invoke the memory of Emmett Till, you know,
Yeah.
as we're having this conversation, you know, and nobody here is trying to say Emmett Till was guilty, right? No one to this day is like, yep, Emmett Till actually did it, but we can't bring him back.
Well, the lady that accused him openly admitted and
Right,
public
deathbed.
that those were false allegations. As a matter of fact, there is a, um, a group of people that's pushing for her arrest, although she's, you know, well up in age. There are people pushing for her arrest for bringing up those false charges. Um, it's you know, I just want to say um, these are tough cases because Black women and women of color,
Yes,
when they bring up sexual assault, is sometimes ignored. Sometimes they're demonized as being over sexual, that it was their fault. It was this. Look at the way you dress. Look at your anatomy. And that's not fair to them. So we have to begin to, one, um, maybe just do a whole revamp in how we look at sexual assault cases to, one, protect those who are being falsely accused, and two, to be able to get justice for those individuals, men, women, trans, um, all different sexual orientations, because sometimes they get sexually assaulted. And because of people beliefs about their lifestyle, sometimes go underreported or justice is not served because of people beliefs.
absolutely. Um, and thank you for bringing up the point about Black women, you know, and I don't want that to be a blind spot about this show. That's why we need more women co-hosts on here to bring up the woman's aspect as well, because you know I kind of left that out of my commentary, but that's kind of something that, remember, we were chatting about the subject matter, and I was saying that's kind of a catch-22 in the white supremacy, in the white supremacist trope of the hypersexualized black race, or black people, just being hypersexualized, fetishized, you know, just being over all the Black men want to do is they're only good for one thing. Black women, they're hyper voluptuous. They're overbuilt. Teacher Bay, you know, she just wears a jeans and a t-shirt. Hey, she can't change how she was built, you know. Teacher Bay, you know, is it even appropriate for her to wear jeans and a t-shirt if it actually fits her? You know, how many other women at that school wore a fitting t-shirt and jeans, and it was asked if it was even appropriate or should be allowed, right? Because we're hypersexualized, you know, by society, and that's another remnant of full-blown white supremacy. We can't change white supremacy's history with how they objectified the black physique.
You know, let's stay on this. Let's talk about Brittany for a second. Sentenced to 9 years. And you know what I found the most interesting about that case?
Break it down.
So Brittany, let me make sure I like to pronounce people's last names and names correctly. Brittany Griner, who was arrested in Russia on residue of marijuana. Residue that was in her vape. I think it was in the vape pen and a couple of jars that she may have, or containers for the. I don't think any of the containers were full. I could be wrong, but I don't think they were full. I think it was residue, and was went through the Russian airport, the airport in Russia, and they tested everything and found out it was laced with banned things that banned marijuana in Russia. I think they have very strict drug laws in Russia, and she's been in trial and is a WNBA All-Star, has stood up for Black Lives Matter, has done a bunch of things. For the most part, is quiet, but definitely is out there in the community. Who's part of the LGBTQ plus community, has a wife. I believe they just had a baby recently or not that long ago. And the comments after she was sentenced. Now, Kevin, It's bad enough she's sentenced for 9 years on residue. Let's just keep it real. 9 years on residue. But the comments of people saying she got what she deserved. She's anti-American. And I want to make sure I use the correct pronouns. And I don't know if Brittany go by she, so I'll just call by name. The things that they said about Brittany was I was just shocked. I thought people would be more sympathetic to the situation. There was a lot of people who felt like justice was served not because it was right, but because they felt like Brittany turned their back on America. And I don't think that's ever been the case. If anything, the actions was to make America better in how they treat all people. Yeah, that's it. 9 years, bro. 9 years.
Convicted of deliberately smuggling drugs into Russia and sentenced to 9 years of jail time on Thursday. And the case has raised concerns. She's being used as a political pawn in Russia's war against Ukraine. Yeah,
you got the war against Ukraine. And there's a black person that now has nothing to do with this war, per se. Nothing to do with this war, but definitely is being used, as you said, as a pawn to as a part of this war in this fight between the fight of power between the United States and Russia. It's about power.
Right. And she made a good, powerful statement. I never meant to hurt anybody. I never meant to put anyone in jeopardy. I never meant to put in jeopardy the Russian population. I never meant to break any laws here. I made an honest mistake and hope that you're ruling that it doesn't end my life here. Notice she had to say, hope it doesn't end my life, because she knows what the prison system's like in Russia. I know everyone keeps talking about political pawn and politics, but I hope that is far from this courtroom. And how could it be, you know?
And on this same day, when we talk about people being incarcerated and losing their life, Breonna Taylor, I think it was Breonna Taylor. Was it the officers that got convicted of the civil rights? If I'm correct, was it Breonna Taylor? Which case was that?
In Louisville, Kentucky?
Yeah. Was it the officer? Was it that case? I am catching up. I did 6 workshops today. I was trying to catch up on the news, but I do know in one of the cases,
charged 4 police officers in fatal Breonna Taylor raid.
Yeah,
so they're being charged by the U.S. Justice Department.
So on one end, we have one person that was convicted of 9 years, and on the other end, you have the tale of 2 stories of a sister whose apartment was raided, and they came in shooting, and she ended up getting murdered, and now, you know, those officers have to be held accountable.
They got to be, and you know, I went to Louisville, Kentucky for the what do they call it? The caravan.
Yes, I remember. Y'all had quite a few people from Colorado on that trip.
Yeah, Shanika Carter, Sister Shanika Carter, friend of the show, put that together and made it happen. And it was like the 1700s how the police were treating that black community out there. You know, things that never hit TV. You know, those police shot a shop owner. He owned I think it was like a barbecue restaurant or something like that. They shot him and left him dead in the street for like 12 hours, right down the street from the protest, from what they call Ground Zero. You know, where they put down all the flowers and writings and everything. It's crazy, dude. And they showed the spot where they were sniping at black people, you know, from on top of the building. And the courthouse is the same courthouse that they used to sell slaves from. And showed the windows. They showed the windows of the courthouse. I mean, not the windows. It was like windows, but it's like up high. It wasn't glass. Mm-hmm. They were left open, and that's where they would display enslaved people for the sale of enslaved people. You know, I'm like, hey, here they are. Come get them. You know, here they are for sale, and they just turned that into City Hall. It's crazy, and they put the police. It's the same institutions are still not doing the exact same thing, but they've evolved. And that's why I say it's Jim Crow 2.0. Not that I invented that term, but it's Jim Crow 2.0. They're still lynching black men and women left and right. But I want to share the screen real quick of the Breonna Taylor issue here.
Go ahead, please share it. I mean, those officers are, I think it's being held by, I think the charges are being brought by the Department of Justice. And so the charges will be federal. And we'll see what happens. So I always say,
Breonna, go ahead, Omar.
I always say that, and you know a little bit more about this case than I do, but I always say that court cases and justice is a marathon. It's very seldom short and sweet.
Yep, very much so. And tale as old as time. The DA or the Attorney General for Kentucky is black, and he's out there palling, glad handing, and I hate to say it, shuffling, dancing a jig, with these people, and we have a terminology for that, and we don't have to get negative on the show, but this is tale as old as time. This is what they do. They take one of us and turn them against us. So Breonna Taylor was a black medical worker who was shot and killed by Louisville police officers in March of 2020. In her own home, which would be a good add-on to that first sentence. And, when witnesses, within earshot, did not hear the police announce themselves. All they heard was the door break open, the door banged on, break open, and bullets start flying. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but still, it's kind of messed up. This article was put out August 4th, which was this morning at 8 a.m. But I think it's mostly a video that it wants us to watch. So I'm going to stop the share. All right.
Yeah, I think anything that enlighten the audience about the case. We talk about our criminal justice system. I always try to be cognizant that every single state is different. But what you find common are black bodies. Although each state is different, training is different, everything is different. But what you find common in some cases is the criminal justice system and not holding officers accountable for their abuse of power. And then it's generally at the result of someone black, unfortunately, losing their life. Now, I'm not going to say that there hasn't been any officers that's been prosecuted. Now, I will say that we've come a long way, because if you looked at the 70s and you looked at the 80s, if you think it was bad now, it was definitely bad then and worse then, because it was like you were non-human going into the court system. There was no evidence. Everything was based on, in most cases, handwritten police reports or typed out police reports where you could manipulate evidence, manipulate witnesses, and things of this nature. So one thing
where the report was handwritten 12 hours later,
or 12 when everybody got their story together. Now today, I'm happy to see more officers who abuse their power. Once again, not those officers who go in and show up to work and do everything they can to protect our community. I'm not talking about those officers. I'm talking about those officers who walk in with a backpack of drama on their back and terrorize our community. I want those officers off the street.
And they're getting a lot of them out of here. And, I had a recent conversation with a conservative, and he was talking about, how he had issues with the way some things were going in California. And he's like, yeah, they're over here trying to defund the police, because that's a leftist talking point. And I mentioned that both sides of the political spectrum have been defunding the police this entire time. They've also been, one way that you defund someone is you make them do more for the same pay. When you make police deal with mental health issues, when they used to, and we've seen this in the movies, they bring the white van and the guys in the white shirt come out and they put the straight jacket on them, and they take them to a padded room and they help get them some mental health care so they can't hurt themselves. Put a straight jacket on so they can't hurt themselves or someone else. They get taken to a mental health care professional, and maybe the industry wasn't as good as it could have been, back in those days. But I know one thing they didn't do back in the days when they brought the white van. They didn't shoot them, right? And nowadays, you bring a bunch of guys with hammers, and everything looks like a nail. So you have someone suffering a schizophrenic break. You have someone hearing voices or seeing visions, or or having drug and mental health crisis. And the only person that comes is a guy with a gun ready to arrest someone and take them to regular jail, with regular prisoners who just committed regular crime. It's not necessarily the best situation for anyone. So, give them the job that they're supposed to have. Let them focus on the criminal activities and the investigations and the detective work. And let's bolster the mental health aspect of it and get these people the help they need. And maybe we could do something about that homelessness issue. Maybe that would do something about, the incarceration issues and the drug addiction. Maybe people are self-medicating a little more than maybe purported by our criminal justice system as it is right now.
When you say you were talking to someone about defunding the police and things of this nature, did that same individual talk about increasing health care for those officers at the Capitol who lost their career because they were trying to defend the Capitol against people who didn't believe or who believed that the presidential election was rigged? Did that same person talk about being with the families of those officers,
right,
who have to live through this trauma every single day? So once again, there's let me answer. I want to give kudos to. Go ahead.
Let me answer. I'm gonna answer in my Texas accent. Hell no.
See. The thing is that both sides. We need to have a critical discussion about, I don't even want to call policing. I call it public safety. Because the same people in Watts, Compton, 5 Points, Park Hill, that may be experiencing an increase in crime, want safe community. But they don't want to be terrorized by the people that's committing the crime, and then at the same time terrorized by the people that's supposed to protect them. I am glad to see that.
Can we talk about Watts and Compton and talk about gang activity when gangs were originally, being formulated to try to help protect our community from a lot of these police officers?
I think about the Black Panther Party for self-defense, not the Black Panther Party that was the political party in Mississippi, in Lowndes County, Mississippi, but the Black Panther Party of self-defense in Oakland, California. Their whole thing was about bringing gangs together. Fred Hampton out there in Chicago was trying to bring the Vice Lords, Black P. Stones, all of them together so that they can protect their community in a different way, police their community in a different way. I don't know if anybody followed the show The Chi. I am a big fan of the show The Chi. And they had a segment in the last season. I got to get caught up on the new season. In the last season, where they said, hey, we're going to try to police our community. And the first case they had was a domestic violence dispute. And you found out how difficult it was to police your community. Because now those same people, you're known in the community, you Pookie in the community, people know you got cred, or you the queen in the community, people know you got street cred, and you walk in there and you say, hey, you got to cut this out. You got to stop going at each other. And they say, who are you? Sell out. And you're not even an officer. So I got to say, law enforcement and public safety has a difficult job, but we don't want to be terrorized by any entity. The same service that goes in Beverly Hills and the same service that you have in Southlands near Aurora is the same service you want to have in your communities that are experiencing a higher rate of crime. You want to be treated with respect and dignity. And at the same time, we want those who are terrorizing our communities, committing the murders and things like that. Don't call that black. Get them off the street because that's not black.
Right. Don't say black on black crime. Say crime. Say violence.
Right. I never say black on black crime. I'm just saying those who try to defend it, saying, well, those are, that's that hood status. That they, I call them black. That's my black. But no. If you killing people in our community, you're worse than the officer that's terrorizing our community.
Right.
You need to go. You need to be now. If someone can come and save and rescue you, get some mental health, compound for compassion. The brothers that are out there doing good work in church groups and faith-based organizations. Hey, if you can go out there and save them, grab them. But grab them before they cause any more harm in our community. If they continue to cause harm, they need to be held accountable.
Get them out of here. Get them out of here. And look, I don't call it black on black crime. I just ask, how come no one? I always tell people the definition of white supremacy is, how come you never heard of white on white crime? And they're like, what? White on white crime? What's that? I'm like, that's white supremacy. Like, that's why you don't hear that term. No one talks about that because that's just crime. That's just crime. It's only when it's black people, all of a sudden it becomes black on black crime. No one says brown on brown or Asian on Asian. They don't say any other types of same on same crime. They just say black on black crime. That's the only one that's been coined. So when they start having these terminologies, these special languages, but special sayings and whatnot, it is a conspiracy in some instances. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There is a conspiracy. White supremacy is conspiring against black people and people of color and indigenous and immigrants in our community. So we have to talk about that. But I heard a moderate political commentator on YouTube talking about why they're not in support of so many people who even criticize Joe Biden. And I've got plenty of criticisms for Joe Biden. Hey, look, I can go down the list of criticism for Barack Obama too, because I criticize. I just criticize. I criticize.
Hey man, don't bring up those criticisms of President Obama in front of my mother, man. You're gonna have a fight on your hand. I'm just keeping it real.
Well, look, if she hears about the tax cuts for the rich, and she finds out that George W. Bush couldn't make them permanent, but Obama could, she might entertain it a little bit. But I get it.
You cannot say nothing bad about President Barack Obama to my mother. You will have a fight on your hands. She will turn. She's in her 70s, but she'll gladly go to her 40s for that fight.
And look, I love the imagery of a black president for my black children, right? I love it. I love how it looks. I love what it sounds like, what it feels like, but sometimes when you dig into the details, the devil's in the details, as they always say. So I understand what she's talking about. She's talking about the energy, that feel good, that moment, watching them get inaugurated and that exhilaration. And that's what's up. I'm here for that too. I love pictures of black astronauts, but if they talk about their private life and they're a real person, they have those real issues, that's real. But I feel that. But the person was talking about how they don't like, obviously Republicans in the political community have been breaking norms, by not allowing a Supreme Court pick during Obama's tenure, by just allowing things to be broken, allowing so much distrust to be injected into the general electoral process, and whatnot, and then softening their blow when it came down to prosecuting January 6th and blah blah blah, on the Republican end of the spectrum. But then also, was pointing the finger at far left Democrats as well, saying, okay, well, why would you want to then pack the court? And look, I've been yelling out pack the court too, but you're also saying let's further erode this institution. Why would you say get rid of the filibuster? You're further eroding this institution, and you're breaking this thing to a point where it's like, what are you going to have after it's done? And yeah, you're going to have a temporary political win, but in the end, you're creating a monster. Now, the next time there's a Republican House and Senate, not only will they get rid of abortion, they'll get rid of interracial marriage, they'll get rid of gay rights, they'll get rid of everything in the book. We'll be back in the 50s because you've created this monster. And what they were saying was like, as you chisel, as you carve, everything you do carves the outcome. You're chiseling a sculpture, right? And so what are you chiseling into? What are you chipping away and creating? So we want to create the most beautiful sculpture we can, but if we add more ugly into it, because there is already some ugly, we're going to make a more monstrous, a worse monstrosity in the end. And I kind of I took that to heart, that moderate argument there. And I'm still not a moderate, but I took that to heart a little bit.
Well, Kevin, I think that you bring up some good points. Politics to me are immediate and local. If you're talking about the presidency, but you haven't done nothing about your local mayor's race, your local city council race, you haven't done nothing about your county commissioners, and if you haven't done nothing to be on these boards and commissions that select judges at the local level, or haven't done your investigation on who you're voting for as a judge on your ballot, then it's difficult for me to hear your argument about the national.
I brought that up earlier. I said if you care about Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, if those things trigger you or mean something, deeply to you, then you're not paying attention to your attorney general race. You're not paying attention to your district attorney race. As I was mentioning, the John Kellner and Phil Weiser debate.
Yeah, they had the John Kellner and Phil Weiser candidate forum. I thought it was extremely informative on both candidates. I definitely lean towards Phil Weiser because I just followed his work as a state attorney general, and I think he's done some good work. That I don't have anything bad to say about John Kellner. I followed his work in Arapahoe County, and him and I have had some discussions about what can be done to improve the criminal justice system in Arapahoe County. Phil Weiser, in my opinion, he shows up. He's there. The question is, do you have your own opinion about this race? Have you done the research? Have you looked at the candidates? Are you looking at the candidate forums for the issues that are important to you, whether if it's the environment, whether if it's someone that's going to champion women's rights, or however you feel about that issue? You need to start looking at these races. You need to start looking at your school board races. By the way, Kevin, school starts, and depending on your school district, school has already started. School, and for some people, school starts in 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
What is your school board saying about your schools? We have a decrease. I'm going to repeat this. Just about every district, not all, but just about every district is experiencing a decrease in student attendance because more people are either looking at alternative education systems, whether it's charter, private, or this, that, and the other. And a lot of people are opting, that's it, to homeschool or go with one of those companies that have homeschool platforms so that, if you're not good in math or you're not good in science or teaching is just not your thing, your kid can go to school online and get their high school diploma or get their equivalent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually went to me and my wife went to a homeschool convention a few weeks ago. I support public schools.
Was it packed? Was it packed?
Packed full of white families. Absolutely. Yes, sir. It sure was. There was
you
no salt. There was no
families
in that
color?
salt. No, negative.
Really?
I saw maybe two when I was there.
Really?
Just what I observed. No, this was out here in the LA area. It actually was more Ontario. I think it was Ontario.
I'm glad you gave me that reference now.
Okay. I mean, I don't know the area, but
Ontario and LA is too different.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so I had to throw that caveat on there, but hey, they're talking about it. And how many times am I gonna look? Like I said, I served 4 years on the school board. Obviously, I'm a proponent of public education. I've advocated against the nonstop onslaught of just endless and relentless charter influx into districts because of the secondary effect of depleting the budget for all of our public schools and decreasing the amount of funding for programs and whatnot. So we're already underfunded in the first place, right? So I've already can have that conversation. But how many school shootings am I going to watch on TV before I say, look, you know what? Till we get something figured out on this gun control, on these background checks, on these maybe ammunition controls or something. If we can't get this all figured out, maybe I need to talk about homeschooling my kids, right? And also curriculum and whatnot. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, Kevin, let's dive a little deeper in that. I know we're going into some dangerous territory, but let's dive a little deeper in that. I had a mother come to me and say, my child was in charter school up until the 8th grade, and their child wanted to go to public school, African American male, and went to public school, had never gotten in trouble, never even got detention, or never had a letter sent home. First year of public school, had like 2 citations, a bunch of detentions, and things of this nature. So the mother is having the conversation. The mother's having the conversation with me and said, Omar, what should I do? And we had a conversation because she said, do I put my child at risk in this public school who I feel has a target on my child's back and can possibly have him on the school to prison pipeline before the age of 15, when his whole academic career, he never received any type of disciplinary action. What do you tell
here's a short list of what to do. Pull them out, right? 1, pull them out, put them into the school of your choice, put them into a charter, private, or homeschool, right? 2, get all up that district hind end and talk about the school to prison pipeline, talk about this discriminatory disciplinary practices, talk about overuse or the weaponization of school resource officers. And 3, run for the school board. Run for the school board. That's your platform right there. And kick all that stuff out of the district and say, I want to make this district one that I can bring my kid back to. That's what I want to do.
And that's difficult. That's a difficult conversation to have with a parent when you're trying to champion public schools. Because, right. And then you have a parent that come to you and say, hey, this teacher has an issue with students of color, Black students, Latinx students, and several parents has filed complaints. Not one, several parents has filed complaints. But because of the protection afforded to a teacher, that this teacher...
The teachers union?
Because of the protections afforded to this teacher is still in a classroom, possibly terrorizing kids and jeopardizing not only their academic future, but their life, but depending on how the report is written by the teacher, can determine, is it going to result in a resource officer given a citation? Or is it just detention and another write-up in that student's file? Once again, I'm not here to demonize public schools, because I'm gonna tell you something, Kevin. I had to facilitate several new teacher orientations today, and I saw I don't even believe in teachers. I call them community leaders. I saw so many community leaders in there. I was excited. I'm happy. I think our kids are getting an amazing product. At the same time, when those questions come up, we cannot sugarcoat the issue. We have to give those parents real options and answers so that they can, the number one priority is for their child to be successful and that their child have a productive educational experience.
Very true. And if you really love something, you're going to be honest about it. You're going to be honest about honestly critical of it. And you really want it to be the best thing it can be. You're going to say, hey, look, there are issues here, and I really do want it to improve. Right now I'm a driving instructor. I had a student who was having trouble just staying between the lines of the road. And I had to pull over, stop, and say, listen, if you can't stay in between the lines of the road, I'm going to have to kick you out of this vehicle, and you will not be able to drive because it's unsafe, period. Do I love you and want you to be able to succeed? Yes. Is it absolutely critical that you don't hurt anyone else or yourself? Yes. Right? Same thing, public school system. I want to empower, Black, brown, indigenous, marginalized communities, poor people, poor white people to just have somewhere they know guaranteed they can go. No issues, no waiting list, no lottery, no special treatment to get in there, no connections. Just say, I live in this neighborhood. I'm gonna go to that neighborhood school right there and go log in or enroll and get a high quality education. Right? I want that. But if it's failing, I got to point at the failures. I got to.
And I'm a big fan of unions. And all my family at one time. All my family at one time. My mother was in the union for public transportation in Los Angeles, California. My father was in the teachers union. I was in the teachers union in Long Beach, California, when I was teaching in Long Beach Unified School District. My better half, Regina, was in the flight attendants union. So unions, you was a team. So I'm a big fan of unions. I'm a big fan of public schools. Like you said, when you love something, you got to be able to look at all aspects. And when a family of color comes to you with those types of problems, we have to be real in giving them answers and giving them real answers so that their child don't continue to go through that same system. And we have to do a better job getting, and I know there's a teacher shortage.
Yeah,
I recognize that. At the same time, if we know one of the reasons why people are pulling their kids out is because in some cases, not in all cases, the teaching environment is not good for their kids, then we need to get rid of those teachers who are making it difficult for kids to succeed by their biased views about either students of color or any group of people. No kid, regardless if you're white, black, Hispanic, whatever, should have to experience any type of exclusionary practices in the classroom.
I mean, there should be an investigatory process as well. That's decided upon by the board and the community together. Whenever there's bias allegations, there should be an evidence collection process. We have way too much technology and too many people that are able to report instantaneously or whatnot. We have all these live videos popping up of these teachers who have done all kinds of done and said so many egregious things, and then find out they kept their job, they weren't reprimanded and whatnot. And these sorts of things should not be swept under the rug. They should be brought up to the highest levels of control over that district. And I think we need to be looking for leadership from the state school boards as well. What kind of a state school board do we have? And what are they passing down to the local school boards when it comes to empowering them and helping shape legislation around it so that we can do this stuff? Because there's so much legal red tape around everything that goes on in the school district as well, which is unbeknownst to lots of district, even district employees.
Hey, Kevin, we've been talking about some traumatic stuff. Let's talk about some good stuff. Tell me about your favorite teacher.
My favorite teacher was Mr. Patterson, 7th grade science. He kept it real simple. He kept it gangster for me. Like, for me, this is gangster in class. Everybody's going to read one paragraph out of the chapter. First paragraph, Kevin Cox, go. He called everyone sir or ma'am. No one didn't read the chapter. Everyone had to read along. He would just randomly ask someone, hey, what was such and such? He'd ask a question out of that previous chapter that one of the other students read. Guaranteed that everyone was engaged with the material. If you're disrespectful to him, you're out of the class. He never argued with anybody. Like, sir, can I ask you to please get in your seat? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Ma'am, you're already late. If it was one more minute, I'd send you for a referral, but you made it just in time. Please open up to chapter 7. Thank you, ma'am. You know what I mean? And just that level of respect was completely mirrored right back to him. And that's one of the reasons, outside of the ROTC stuff and being raised in the South, it's one of the things that made me stick with sir and ma'am. Even when I'm cool and at a colloquial basis with a lot of people, I could call them by a nickname or bruh or dog or whatever, and I still hit them with the yes sir. Because Mr. Patterson, 7th grade, he got me right. He got me there.
I'm gonna say, senior year at Inglewood High School. And I'm ashamed that I don't remember the teacher's name, but he taught Spanish and he taught history. Taught Spanish and he taught civics. And he wasn't a loud teacher, wasn't very aggressive. I think he identified as being Chicano. Term Latinx or Latin, I think he identified as being Chicano or Mexican American, just based on how he represented himself. Had all the respect in the world. And he gave you respect. So you walked into class, he was like, good morning, how you doing? Hey, you knocked yourself today. Let's have a conversation after class. And you can see people who may not have been doing well in their other classes succeed in his class because of the way he approached. He didn't look at it as him being the teacher and you the student. He looked at it as being a community leader in that classroom. And when I say community leader, that doesn't mean out there advocating for everything in the community. That means while you're with those students, it's more than just a teacher and student relationship. You are the leader of a community in that classroom. And if you don't look at it that way, I think that's the reason why some teachers fall short in engaging and building relationships with students.
Yep. And also, because I don't want to just talk about teachers who are falling short. I want to talk about district leadership that doesn't provide a good work environment for those teachers who may not be providing a good learning environment. Because that student's learning environment is that teacher's working environment, right? And if they're being set upon by their building or district leadership, that can change totally the vibe in that classroom. Sometimes, they say, crap rolls downhill, right? And it sucks sometimes for teachers when they're trying to keep up with the next module of social emotional learning, and they're trying to take that next class to for furthering education and whatnot. And I understand all that stuff, and you did all that, but requirements keep changing and increasing year by year, and our pay isn't going up with inflation. And then Colorado is 47th out of 50 when it comes to per pupil funding. So budgetary wise, they're not making very much money. I out earned almost every teacher in the district while I was just being a lowly truck driver, right? And just like I work a little bit of overtime, and I got everybody beat that hasn't been at the district for 25 years. So it's kind of hard for them to I'm not going to say they can't do their job if they're not making good money or if the superintendent isn't nice. I'm definitely not writing that excuse, because I've been crapped on, I've been underpaid plenty of times, and I was yes sir, yes ma'am, positive and empowering people and uplifting people. But that's because one of my principles is when I'm having a bad day, I make it a point to make someone else's day better, right? Because this day isn't going my way, I'll feel better if I help someone else feel better, right? That's just one of my personal principles. But everyone doesn't have those tools and doesn't have that in them. So I don't want to necessarily, but also they got to get it together too, right? I got to hold them accountable. But also another on the criticism of the unions, because I do support unions, right? But let's talk about union busting. If you want to bust teachers unions, you want to bust Teamsters, you want to bust trade unions and whatnot, you want to bust all these other unions. How come you don't talk about that with police unions? How come police unions receive so much special treatment when the people that on their end that are messing up are literally massacring? Who was the gentleman that was shot up by the police 59 times in Georgia? He was a Tuskegee.
Oh yeah. You talking about, was that the brother that was in the car and they shot the van? There's been the fact that we're confusing shootings, let you know how many are out there. So
right.
Yeah, but while you're looking for that, I just want to bring up a couple of things. I also want to talk about those school leaders that are innovative. I want to talk about those superintendents that's innovative. Just this summer in Cherry Creek School District, as a result of students facing violence in the district, They started the student leadership program. You know, I call students who at times get in trouble, I don't consider them bad students. Consider them students who maybe have some extraordinary leadership skills that haven't been tapped into and no one hasn't built the relationship with. And there was a summer program headed by a brother by the name of Jasper Armstrong, where they spent 6 weeks in the classroom building community. Let me tell you something. These kids had all sorts of different types of files at the school they're at. And in this program for 6 weeks, voluntary, they showed up, they learned. Many of them was like, this is what we needed to see what our future looked like. But they had a teacher that engaged them, and a teacher and teachers, because it wasn't just him, teachers in the community that engaged them, that didn't give up on them and met them where it's at. So yes, there are some superintendents I criticize strongly, but there are some superintendents who are out there trying to do some innovative things in the community.
And I got to give it to some of these superintendents that have to be kind of no nonsense, because, you know, it's true. You know, sometimes it just is what it is, and you just got to do what's got to be done, you know. And I definitely understand that it's hard out here. And when we're dealing with 40,000, 100,000 students, I don't have time for the sob story of the week, you know, from the umpteenth teacher. I got to get this small city of children educated. And it's kind of no matter what, right? Like, and that's fair enough.
You're like a city manager. What. You're not only a superintendent, you are a city manager. You got to build buildings. You got to figure out how to repurpose buildings. Then you got to have those difficult decisions like they're having in APS. If a building is underutilized and the community wants that building to stay open, how do you have that discussion about budget? Because these are not sexy conversations about education, but
not at all.
You have a community that's saying, no, you're disenfranchising our community if you close the school. And then you have a superintendent that's saying there's an underutilization of the building and we're losing out on $5 million, $6 million annually.
Or $11 million.
That can go towards programming. So
yes,
how many
teacher aides, how many after school programs could be hired and paid for with the money from the underutilized building? And then P.S. when you stop underutilizing those buildings, you build a brand new shiny building with better facilities for, you know, a more up-to-date education process, such as STEAM education process and whatnot. With facilities for computers and IT and space for building trades and whatnot, a second trade school in the district and whatnot, under district supervision. And let me stop real quick because I missed a comment.
And then your school board members are caught between the rock and the hard place because theirs is based on elections. And it's like, I got to listen to these voters who say they want to keep the school open, but I'm also looking at a budget that's telling me something else. Or do we need to change the leadership in that school to make it more attractive? But there's some outside influences, Kevin, such as housing going so expensive that people don't move and new families move in. So since new families don't move, hey, somebody brought up that other one, Tabor. Hey,
yep.
You know what, Kevin? When you were talking about funding, we got to talk about Tabor.
Yep.
Tabor,
Gallagher
is killing education in Colorado.
Yep.
Higher ed is expensive because of Tabor. I mean, we got to look at all these different things.
So we're talking about all that, and you know, someone's going to be left behind. Someone's going to fall between the cracks. Someone like the lady you were talking to about her child, you know, they're going to fall between the cracks. And I say, make the immediate decision for your family member immediately, right? And do what needs to be done to stop the pain right now. And then let's inform and educate the people around you that need to know, and let's go over there and change that system that's affecting those 100,000 students or those 40,000 students. I don't know how many Cherry Creek has. Is it 100,000? How many kids are over there? I don't know.
55,000 students.
55,000. Okay, so put us together, and we got about 100,000 students altogether, right? That's a lot of kids. Let's do what we can to make these changes and not say, well, you gotta pull them out and put them into a charter. If you got 100,000 kids looking for charters, guess what? There's a lot more that are going to be lost because there's not that many charters out there, right? And all of them have individual oversight. They have their own individual board, and some of their boards are shady. We've had to close a couple of charters, or we have to reprimand a few charters for things like hundreds of thousands of dollars coming up missing, self-dealing when it comes to private corporations. You got a 100% matriculation and graduation rate. Well, what's going on with kids sitting in the hallway reading books that don't have covers? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some things that we got to look at that are measurable, and some things that aren't necessarily measurable, and just the oversight piece. And when there's lack of oversight, there's going to be people that are going to take advantage. So that conversation needs to continuously be had. Let's see what this one says. Tabor Day instead of Labor Day. No, there are lots of schools are going to charter because of Supreme Court, supremacy court ruling. I like that terminology, Margo. The supremacy court. Boom.
I think that's going to have an impact on the distribution of resources in school districts, especially when you add on Tabor in the state of Colorado. Our rural communities are already suffering. You got principals driving buses to pick up students. You got teachers that's in the kitchen and in the classroom, in the kitchen for lunch and in the classroom trying to make it, because they love their profession. They love their profession.
And you know what? And many of those cases, those rural situations that are like super unique and different and all over the place, but in many cases outperforming larger, more urban districts by a mile, making us look bad. And they're like, I'm the principal and I drive the bus, and I cook in the kitchen, and I'm still got a higher graduation rate than you guys. And it's kind of like, man, what are we doing? But it's such a huge machine. There's so many pieces. So many people have to be hired just to hire people. Like, I can't hire people by myself. Got so many people I got to hire. Just the agenda item of hiring all the teachers for one school year ends up with 20 minutes of discussion sometimes. So dude, big machines are hard. And that is not Dougco.
Dougco has been taking some hits this past year, and in multiple ways. We have a lot of different narratives in the state of Colorado when it comes to education. I think it's going to be important for people to look at their state elections and begin to look at your attorney general race, look at your governor's race, look at your treasurer's race. I mean, we have
state school board race,
local school board race, and go to those school board meetings. This is the issue. I know parents work, and some of them working 16, 18 hours a day, coming home just to take a nap and go back to work. And it's difficult for them to get to school board meetings. They have several different kids, and they're just trying to make it work. But if you can lend your voice at a school board meeting about what you want in your schools, it goes a long way.
It really does.
Yes.
Take it from a board member. I was vice president of rural public schools for the first 2 years, and then I ended up being I was the treasurer the first 2 years, then ended up being the vice president the second 2 years. And that's and look, Margo is giving you kudos on that, saying true that. Listen, when we heard a comment from the audience, sometimes we had conversations about that comment more than we had about the entire meeting for the next month. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they say stuff that it's a tearjerker moment, and the general rule was kind of don't respond back personally to that information that was just given to you, because you need a minute to process. Sometimes things make you want to say one thing immediately, and then you think about it for 2 more hours, and it's kind of like, oh wait, we were going to talk about that anyway, and we actually were dealing with something about that, and that's actually an agenda item. We're going to vote on that. But when it's framed in such a way, it makes you immediately want to you know what, let's, make some sort of a commitment or have some sort of a response. And we have to be professional and bring back the old school methods. Let me take a minute and think about that. Let me sleep on that. And now that may become an agenda item in 2 weeks or a month or something like that. We're going to put real weight behind that, put professionals on this, and put some accountability into it, because we're going to come back to that next quarter or something like that.
Kevin, I want to add to that. You know what my best part of a school board meeting is?
What's that?
At the beginning, when the schools are doing their when you have a school come in and do a presentation about one of their programs that's succeeding, about kids where they increase graduation rates, where they have reduced suspensions and expulsions and has increased attendance. I love hearing those reports, because those reports are sometimes swept under the carpet because people want to get to the negative stuff. But there are some positive things. As much adversity we have towards funding, there are some teachers on the front lines doing amazing work. Like when I was talking about Jasper and talking about that leadership program. When I think about school board members who actually go out and visit the schools, who actually go out and know what's going on in their school district. I'm not saying all school board members, but there's some school board. I don't always want to come in with the gloom and loom story. Let's uplift those who are doing amazing work. And
so, for instance,
I think it can, and not to cut you off, Kevin, and I think it empowers them to continue doing that amazing work when you acknowledge it.
Absolutely. When you acknowledge it, and like Margot said, not just give lip service, but focus on policy and start a process that's going to end up somewhere. We're going to have a follow-up on that. Here we go. Love that too. Thank you, Margot. So talk about that situation you're talking about. The lady you spoke to, her son never had disciplinary issues, comes into public school. Now he's got, is he going to be in the school to prison pipeline? Say you have 5 individual stories like that, and then you look at this district and you see that they've cut their suspensions and expulsions in half, knowing that that's 80% Black and brown students, right? So that's that many students that were removed from the school to prison pipeline. Not trying to take away from that anecdote that you were talking about, but we're talking about 100,000 students between these 2 districts, and then say, okay, then we stop suspensions and expulsions, but look at the grades that they have. Those students that were suspended and expelled, their grades, they weren't the straight A students. Their grades, now that they're staying in, lowers the average of our district. It lowers our achievement, lowers our growth numbers. And so the fact that we're keeping students in that other, I don't want to say charters just give up on students that aren't performing, but I've heard tell, right? But if you're keeping these students that are struggling more, then you're lowering your numbers and saying, hey, now I have to allocate these resources. I can't pass them on to anybody. I'm a public school. So it's that catch-22 of I do keep the students that require more attention, and then I look bad afterwards because my numbers reflect it. I cut this, but then I couldn't stop the school to prison pipeline completely, because we live in an imperfect world with imperfect people who will still weaponize the SRO officer against a student here and there, and we hear tale, but it's whack-a-mole. You go over here and stop it over here, someone else does it over there. So that's kind of the issue. It's so many schools, so many building leaders and whatnot. So work is being done on that front, and it's still, you can find all these individual deals, and it's like, just keep on bringing it up to us, keep on pointing it out to us, and I promise you, a board like the board I was on, we're all over it like white on rice. It's just it's all over the place. So it's like these things take time. But in that engagement piece you talked about, absolutely, that's really, really a solution. Engagement.
It takes time, and I want to give some more kudos. I think APS has done an amazing job welcoming immigrant and refugee communities because of the large immigrant and refugee community that they have. I mean, the way they're able to translate different information in about five or six different languages, and there's over 120 something languages spoken in the city of Aurora itself. Then let's go back. Cherry Creek added healthcare facilities on campus that's open to the community. It's a pilot right now,
Fire.
but one is at Overland High School, and the other is at Horizon Middle School. And people in the community, it was open during the summer as well, and people in the community was going there for healthcare services. So we have to begin to look at that education has evolved. And unfortunately, in some cases, in order to get the best way for students to perform is that sometimes we have to answer or address issues outside of education for them to perform better in the classroom, whether if that's healthcare, social services, mental health services. You got to have a wraparound approach for each student.
And when they're in the building, you got to do whole student. You can't just talk about score. You can't just talk about, well, what you score on the test. All right, we'll come over here and go and talk to this tutor. No, we got to talk to that whole student. Who's that student having to take care of? Who's that student having to take care of when they go home? Is that student babysitting 3 younger siblings because mom's working her 3rd job? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, big brother is about to go to jail for 9 years. What kind of trauma are these students dealing with? Mental health in healthcare is healthcare. We have to deal with this entire student. We can't just deal with these test scores. And who knows better about the state of affairs for these students besides, but more than the teachers, more than the standardized test. I would say the teachers do. And there you go. Here you go, my wife. I'm hungry. I don't care about class. That's facts.
Is she saying that she's in class right now? Is she hungry and you need to go get her something?
Those students. No, those students may say. Kevin, I want to say that was me. That was me, 11th and 12th grade, Margot. Stocking shelves until midnight, working at Food Town across the street from my mom's house.
But I'm going to give an example. When I was, I taught a study abroad class in Costa Rica, and one of the towns that I taught in, they had 2 different times for high school students. Those that went to school from morning to afternoon, and those who went from afternoon to not late evening, but mid-evening. And that was because some of those kids had to either work with the family, work to help provide for the family. But they adjusted the school hours so those kids can do that. And, there was limits, 15 to 20 hours a week, if that, where they did the majority of the hours on their weekend. And yes, homework was important, but homework wasn't everything, because they knew these kids had to work. So they figured out ways so the kids could be successful and not be punished because they didn't turn in the homework. So they said, hey, look, here, these assignments are due at the end of the semester. Use your time to get them done. Here's the packet. Get it done at the end of the semester. And we have tutors available to help you when you need it. We have to reimagine, especially in the economic system we have today, where a 13-year-old or 14-year-old may have to be the breadwinner because their parents may be facing health challenges, and most of their money is going towards these expensive prescriptions that we have here in the United States.
So we need to talk about that. And we can do this all day. We can do this all day. You and me, we can do this all day. And Marcus jump in here. We can do this all day too. We need an education show. We need a show where we specifically just talk about education issues. You're all up in the district. You're education, incarnate. I can't drive, and in the winter, my child is late to every first class because the buses don't run here because of Tabor.
Or we just
Bill of Rights.
Or we have a shortage of bus drivers.
We have a shortage of bus drivers, not right?
Shortage of bus drivers, and you have people who are leaving the field of education. Before we begin to go in the closing, Kevin, I want to share this. I heard someone sort of, when people give examples about jobs, how they always want to throw the fast food industry in there and say, like, the fast food, like, you don't want to work at McDonald's. Well, a manager at McDonald's can make up to 6 figures and almost become an owner. A manager at In-N-Out Burger can make 6 figures. The manager at Panda Express can make up to 70 to 90,000 a year. How much are we paying teachers, Kevin? Coming out.
Talk about that.
How much are we paying teachers, Kevin? So
one of my daughter's teammates on the volleyball team, she's been working in and out for the last 3 years of her high school career. Now she's going to a local community college around the corner from us, and they offered her a management position, knowing that they can make six figures and whatnot. Got many of us adults beat with educations.
So my thing is that, one, let's quit demonizing the fast food industry, because there is a career in the fast food industry. There's education in the fast food industry. But you have people who are teachers saying, well, if I can make six figures in about 3 years at In-N-Out Burger, but it'll take me almost 10 to 15 years to get my seniority to hopefully crack six figures as a teacher, what am I going to do? You see teachers going into real estate. You see teachers going into insurance. And yes, some of those industries are not paying taxes. And I agree with you. At the same time, I'm talking about people who are trying to provide for their families. They may not be looking at the full political picture. They're looking at, I'm in this classroom doing all I can for these kids, and my starting pay is maybe 40 or 50,000. Where this teenager who 16 years old is making as much as me, and they in my classroom.
Talk about that.
They're making 50, 60.
Not you. Not you.
They're giving you loans for gas money.
I got it, Teach. No, they ain't making as much as you, Omar. I'm gonna stop you right there.
They walked in saying, hey, you know what? Hey, my retirement fund looks good. Really? Oh yeah, I'm gonna take my mother
on TikTok.
I'm gonna take my mother to Hawaii next year.
Oh my goodness gracious!
So I'm just saying there's some reality out there about salaries. There's some reality out there about how do we value the education system in the United States. More importantly, because this is where we live, the state of Colorado. More importantly, where we live in our local school districts. Are we championing? Are we writing letters to those teachers that's doing it right? Are we, when it's time for them to go for negotiations, are you writing letters on their behalf so they can be paid more? And at the same time, trying to talk to the governor and the state treasurer, how can we carve out some money without cutting something else?
And here's why I said, this is why I said, go talk to your school board, because it does mean something. These people are regular people. Sometimes they get that one phone call and they change that vote. And that one vote changes that policy for all those kids. Right now, I received a letter from a teacher one time, a handwritten letter. This teacher was sick, talking about, hold on a second. Let's check out this comment right here. Educated and working just to pay back school loans, making just enough to not qualify for the free.
Yeah,
this is true. So, but I received a letter from a teacher, and it was a little tearjerker, bro. Like, sometimes they hit you in that spot that makes you think again, And I'm a regular guy. I'm not a doctor or lawyer. I'm not a big time professor. I don't. I'm not out here like that. I ain't been teaching in all these fancy schools like you, Omar. I'm a regular guy, right? They wrote me that letter, and that meant something. That hit home. So do those regular things. Make that phone call. Their number's public. Send that email. They'll probably read it. Most likely they're going to read it. Write them a handwritten letter. That does matter, because these people are regular people. Believe it or not, they're political. They're regular people. I promise you. I work with these people. They're scared to say no to something that's popular whenever everyone comes to the meeting. You hold up a sign and say that they want to change their vote. Your kid cries. They don't want to make your kid cry no more. You know what I mean? These are human beings. So talk to them like they're human beings. We all have that level of
The
compassion.
school board members get paid?
We work for free.
Really?
And we earn every bit of it. No, I'm joking. But for real though, it's a thankless job. No, we get lots of thank yous. I'm not going to say it's a thankless job because I've received so many thank yous and cards, and look, we get plaques. This is from Aurora Public School or Aurora Education Association. Thank you. Just we get all kinds of stuff, and I keep it within arm's reach. I care, you know, that this stuff means something to us. I have plaques and awards and certificates and whatnot from being on the school board and memorabilia and whatnot, and I keep it. I hold on to it because it's special. So, guys, just engage. That's the hard part for people that are working class that have to work 2-3 jobs. They're not around during business hours and whatnot. Find that one thing that you can do. That back to school rally that they're doing at Aurora, at the Aurora Mall. Do something. You're going to find that teacher or that principal or that superintendent walking around there. Those board members are walking around there, if you go early, and and catch them and bend their ear, say something to them.
Okay, hey Kevin, let's try something new. As we begin to think about closing and all that great stuff, I'm gonna throw
really think about it.
I'm gonna throw 3 names out, and you just get one sentence to say about them. Not a long sentence, just 3. I'm gonna throw 3 names out. And then you get to throw me 3 names.
Okay.
LeBron James.
LeBron James is a powerhouse that has courage to step into the political arena, even when he doesn't have anything to gain from it.
Vice President Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris is a pioneer and even though she has a what I would consider in from my ideology a checkered track record, she's still a pioneer and a groundbreaking woman who stands to be one of the most powerful people on earth if certain events may happen.
Senator candidate in Georgia, Herschel Walker.
Now, this is a family show. Herschel Walker is a deer caught in the headlights. He's being directed at he has a bit in his mouth, and he's been directed at the reins by Donald Trump and their ilk, and doesn't deserve the highest level of scrutiny because he does not have the brain cells to really hold up the things that he's saying. He's just regurgitating talking points.
I believe it's senatorial candidate. Is it senator or is it congressional? I think it's senator.
It's senatorial because he's going against Reverend Warnock.
Yeah, so I was right. Okay, you get your 3 with me.
Okay, governor, possible presidential candidate, Ron DeSantis.
Woo! I'm going to say that the Republican Party has a lot to discuss if Trump ends up joining the race. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Stacey Abrams.
Phenomenal. And I hope she becomes the first African-American woman, Black woman, to become, I think as governor, she's running for in the state of Georgia.
What do I do for the 3rd one? Kamala Harris.
Vice President Kamala Harris, who was a district attorney, the attorney general in the state of California. Mm-hmm. I think her voice, we need to hear her voice more on issues and probably a little less of Biden. Only because I think that she's able to, in my opinion, and I know people are very critical of her at times, in my opinion, I think she gives some good arguments and sometimes can reach the hearts of people.
I can't agree with you anymore. I just have issues of prosecutorial criticisms from the past, but we came from a tough on crime era, It's hard to say. It's hard to say what I would have said about those decisions back then, right? The black community was very much so walking in lockstep with the crime bill at the time when it came out. We're looking at it with the 2020 hindsight when we're criticizing Joe Biden behind it, right? Black leaders and civil rights leaders were in favor of it as well because of the pain the black community was experiencing. And not all, but many. And not all criticism is 100% fair, but at the same time, we have to deal with complexities and whatnot.
I would say to that statement, Kevin, I think they were hoping to improve public safety in their communities, not to have not just a school to prison pipeline, but a community to prison pipeline that ended up warehousing young men and women of color to prison, and in some cases prisons that has a economic stake for very powerful economic interest. Sorry, wrong word. Economic interest for people who want to keep the private prisons and other prisons going. So with that stated, Kevin, I think that we still have a lot to talk about. Thank you for doing the 3 names with me.
No, that's high power. I like it.
I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the few names, and I think we covered a lot today.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I got on, I think about 7:10, and it's what, 9:08.
Is it 9:08?
All the way out. Yeah.
Man, we generally done at 8. We really, really have went over. And I had to go run and rescue my dog. Now my dog is sitting over here laid up sleep like a little baby. Just knocked out, knowing. And then when I came back, he tore up the trash can again, but he already ate all the chocolate.
Bro.
I had the trash can pinned. But it's a boxer. It's a smart boxer. He figured out how to move everything and said,
"I got strong and athletic."
Man, my dog is just a happy go camper. He just loves people and loves to figure out. Quick story. First time we got him a cage, he took it apart and tore up the house. I'm going to repeat that. He took it apart. Like, we're thinking, okay, we're going to come back. We had it because he was new to the house until he got trained. Came back, man, he tore the house up. And all I could do was laugh and say, all right, I like it. I like it.
You like it, I love it.
Yeah.
And I had a smart dog. Dog was just totally mixed breed or whatever, but very, very smart. We're getting so much trouble. Dog named Scarlet. And she was so rambunctious. I had that igloo lunchbox where it's kind of like cloth.
Yeah.
You can zip around it and open it, but you can close it. It has the Velcro top on top. You can reach down in there, the little express thing. I had ate my lunch, and I went to 7-Eleven and I bought that brownie cookie, right? And I ate too bad at my lunch, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just hold on to this brownie because this is enough sugar for the day. I left it in my lunchbox. This dog got my brownie cookie out of my lunchbox without tearing up the lunchbox and opened the wrapper cleaner than I might have opened it, and cleaned that whole thing out. I came out, and the only dog that was out was that dog. And I'm like, did I eat that brownie and didn't realize it and leave the wrapper right next to the lunchbox? Some of these dogs, man.
Imagine coming home thinking you're going to grill some tuna steaks. You leave them on the table, and you go upstairs just to change clothes. Getting your grill clothes because you don't want to. So I'm changing clothes. Gina come downstairs. I come downstairs. The dog looking at us, and the tuna package is on the floor.
Those tuna steaks said, "Find me."
I was sitting up there I said, man, you can't really get mad.
Yeah, you got to respect. You got to tip your hat.
Just all be like, all right, I got you. Well, what's our dope black thought for the evening?
Man, I think we had so many dope black thoughts. I think I'm about all out of dopeness and blackness. Man, hit me with a thought if you can. I was going for a while before you came on, Omar. I mean, shoot, I done unloaded all the ammunition I had. Hit me with something. You get me with one.
I'm gonna say this. When we talk about our people, talk about what is the best of what we do.
Facts.
And try to minimize all the negativity that may be taking place in our community. The only way we're going to be able to smile each day is to get through this, is to celebrate our accomplishments. So I would say tomorrow, if you're listening, regardless of who you are, think about something you can celebrate.
There it is.
And let's go from there.
And don't let me take any shine away from that by trying to come up with something else.
With your conspiracy.
Look.
Oh my, black people.
See now, when the man,
black people can't be happy, man. That means we falling asleep and we missing.
See, when you philosophize.
Man, we out.
I'm gonna holler at y'all. DBT out. Peace.
Later.
What is love? It's a drug. Let it rotate, then get back in it. Calling me an Uber just to get back in it. Use the cash out like pay, I spend it. Is it really worth the wait? I don't get